Today's guest speaker is going to be Jerry Britt talking about private money.
Let me, I'm going to share just a couple of personal anecdotes and then get into the presentation I have prepared for you tonight. And, Shelly mentioned that she's from here in Tampa and her husband, Larry, and they're good friends. Here's how good of friends they are. We sold a house that's closing on Friday, but I got asked yesterday if we could close this Tuesday instead of Friday. And, you can probably guess what I said. Sure, I'm okay with closing 3 days early, but that house has a detached garage, and we've been using it as a storeroom for other projects, including appliances are hard to get these days, and we had a set of appliances in that house for a project that's not quite ready for him. So Larry met me at that house this morning at 8 o'clock, and we loaded up those appliances and took them to Larry and Shelly's house and put them in the garage and stashing them there for a week or two until I'm ready to put them in another house. So, you meet friends through fortune builders, and then you meet real friends. And then, when you can call somebody and say, hey, can I steal some of your garage space for a couple of weeks? Then that's more than just an acquaintance. And I'm happy for the many people like that I've met through this group. And Larry and Shelly are just a couple of the more recent ones that's been the case. I am going to share with you today. Well, I said this in the promo, but I have 17 deals right now, but come Tuesday, I'll have 16. But in about a week behind that, we'll be back at 17. We've got one under contract to buy that we haven't closed on yet. And all but one of those 17 deals is 100% funded with private money. And the one that isn't is the one that closes on Tuesday. I have a little bit of hard money on that particular one. Didn't always do that, although I've done most of my deals from the beginning with private money. And I'm going to talk about how I've accomplished that. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of how I do private money today, but I've got a presentation to go over with you of how I did private money in the beginning. Because for me to raise money today is a whole lot easier than it was when I was starting. And so I had more tools and more things that I shared to help the people feel comfortable with the money that when I was asking to partner with them, if you will, and asking for their money. So I'm going to share with you how I did it in the beginning, but in there, I'm going to intersperse some things that I've changed now that I've got more experience with it. And I'd like to say, boy, every time I speak, and I've spoke locally to groups about raising private money before, and I just spoke last month to a local group that also does Zoom, and some of you were on it from across the country, about new construction projects that we're doing. And less than a week after I spoke about new construction, how we got into that, and tips if you're thinking about getting into it, less than a week after that, I locked up 2 new lots for new construction projects. So you give back and it comes back to you. And so I committed to JJ about a month ago to speak today. He had several meetings booked up, and he said next one available is April 3rd. I said, sure, I'll take April 3rd. And we talked about 3 different things that I've done presentations on. And he said, private money is the one he'd like for me to share. And 8 days ago, on Friday, I locked up the largest private money commitment I've ever gotten. I got a single deal with a $1.2 million purchase price and a $300,000 rehab, and I'm getting that whole $1.5 million in private money. So I know that probably would have happened whether I was here today or not, but it just seems like every time I agree to do something to help somebody else out, something comes flooding back my way. So always happy when karma might be your word, but it seems to come back. You do good things for other people, and good things come back to you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that deal too. In fact, this is how raising private money for me works today. I'll flash up some names on my screen here in a few minutes, but I have 5 or 6 people who the majority of my money comes from, and one couple, it's a business that they loan the money through, but one couple is half of my private money. I have about $3.9 million worth of private money engaged in projects, or I will when this one closes that I just locked up last week. And about half of that comes from one family. But the guy I got the money from for this project was I've borrowed 5 or 6 times from him. And he only likes to loan on acquisition costs. He'll loan the purchase, and he'll loan if there's a wholesaler involved, the assignment fee, the closing cost, but he doesn't like to loan all of it, okay? And he is the hardest private lender I have to work with. He wants to come out and see the projects. He wants to feel good about them before he says, okay, it doesn't matter what my research is, doesn't matter how many times I've paid him back, he wants to come out and feel good about it. Very first one he loaned me money on was in a nice subdivision here in Tampa, called the Carrollwood neighborhood, family-friendly subdivision. He loved that neighborhood, loaned me $200,000, and I made $13,000 on that project. Not a great deal for me. The next one he loaned me on was in a very bad neighborhood, a neighborhood where I wouldn't want to live, where I wouldn't want my kids to live. He loaned me $100,000, and I made $35,000 on that deal. And he said at the end, well, I hope you get some more like that one in Carrollwood. That's a real nice neighborhood. That's it. I said, yeah, but Ray, that's a pretty neighborhood, but I made $35,000 on this one with half as much money from you. The equivalent is I would have had to have made $70,000 on that deal. And I only made 13 on that deal. And he is always saying, hey, I got more money. Do you need anything else? I got more money. Do you need anything else? But he is so much of a pain to work with. He is the last guy I call on every deal. I engage all my other private money first, but I know he's got a lot of money. He's the guy who committed the 1.5 million last Friday. Now, I've so many times I've considered just telling him, stop calling me. I'm done dealing with you. You're a pain in my neck. But I don't burn a bridge. You know? And this opportunity came along. I knew he had the money. None of my other lenders had that much money available. So relationships, take care of them, never burn a bridge. Even if you don't agree with them on everything, just listen to what they have to say. So that's my most recent success story in that. What I'm going to show you is a PowerPoint presentation. I know the same educational package that I started this presentation from, you all have access to that, and you could create your own. And I have printed this out a total of 1 time. I never deal with it in a printed copy, but when I'm sitting with somebody today, I never even have it out, but I do on occasion email this to somebody in advance and let them look through it beforehand. And the one I'm going to show you today has a couple slides in it just for you. But but in the beginning, I use this presentation all the time. And whether I use this on a computer or an iPad, but I use this presentation mostly because it would remind me of the next thing I want to talk about and the next thing I want to talk about. I don't have to read the slides to the person, but it reminds me of the things I want to be sure to cover. I've done it so many times now that I don't need this. I can sit down across the table and have a cup of coffee with somebody and walk through these slides in my head and share with them everything I need to know. So what I'm going to show you today is how I used to raise private money, and I still do it the same thing. I just don't use this tool anymore, but I strongly recommend you use this tool. And if you have, if you've never raised private money, and I'm sure there's people on here who haven't done their first flip yet. So if you haven't needed that money yet and you haven't raised that private money yet, and you think, well, if I landed a deal tomorrow, I don't know where I get the money, I would strongly encourage you to download this program. I'm going to walk you through the slide presentation, PowerPoint, and spruce it up and make it your own, because the act of making it your own will make you think about how you would answer that question and will personalize it for you. And I'm going to show you some examples of some of our projects, but if you don't have a project, you can use the canned examples that came with this, or you could ask me and I'll send it to you, and you could use one of my examples that then you don't say this is mine. You say people in our network who've rehab houses the same way that I do, these are some examples of various projects. You know, don't ever claim it's yours if it's not, but it doesn't have to be yours to have these examples and walk through it. And the more you have prepared this and personalized it and practice presenting it, the more you'll be ready to present it when the time comes. And I believe the time will come when you are ready to present it. If imagine getting somebody tomorrow, ask you what you do, and you tell them, and you find out they might be a potential private lender, and you don't have a clue what you would say to walk them through becoming your private lender. Well, I believe that if you get to that point, you'll find the opportunity to present to them. So I'm going to walk you through this. There's a few slides, which I will point out are not ones that I actually include. They're here for your benefit, but a version of this without those extra slides is what I use on a general basis. Okay, so now I told you about my most recent private money deal, how I present now versus then. Here's my first critique, and I didn't make up this critique on my first tip. I didn't make this up on my own. Ask for a critique from a rich friend, and that's just a way to say that shortly. It can be a successful businessman, somebody you know who you believe has money. They don't actually have money. You could have somebody who you believe to be a successful businessman, and if you understood their finances, you might find out they're not a successful businessman. So you might be practicing on this to somebody who really couldn't help you. But ask for a critique. And here's I got this tip from within the educational system that we all have access to. But is this get and then say to a friend, which I did then, you know, who you believe has money, say, hey, I would like an opportunity to get your feedback on something. It's a presentation that I've put together to bring people in to participate in my business and projects that I'm working on. And I value your opinion. And if you could give me a half hour of your time, I would love to show you what I intend to say to people and get your feedback on whether or not I've put it together well. And when you get someone to commit to that, then what I did and what I recommend you do is you go say hi to them, because again, they're a friend, they're somebody you know personally. That's how they might be a friend of your parents, but they're somebody you know personally. That's how you got the appointment. You go there, you chat with them for a few minutes, and then you say, hey, I would like to present this now as if you were a stranger to me. And I actually walked out of the room and walked back into the guy's office and said, hey, Tom, thanks for your time. And then we had a little real small talk like I would have, some rapport building. And then said, I'd like to show this to you. And then I walked them through this presentation I'm about to show you. And mine has been modified from time to time since then. But I walked them through this presentation. And at the very end of the presentation, I asked the question, do you want to be involved? And you'll see the actual way I ask it at the very end. But when you're asking this person for a critique, you tell them, I'm going to get presented exactly like it would. So the very last thing you ask them is, do they want to loan you money? Not in those exact words. And the 3 times I asked for critique, all the people asked for more information, and 2 of them ultimately have loaned me money. So you're going there for a critique, but it could be your first private lender. And then when you get comfortable presenting this, you'll find opportunities to present it. And I use that crutch. Like I used it one time, I used it 2 more times to say, hey, can I get your feedback on this? And you end the feedback with asking for money. And there's this old adage in sales of when you're done, you ask your closing question, shut up, the next one to speak loses. Well, we know that's not really losing because we're all in a win-win-win situation. But the next one to speak shows their hand and shows their interest. And when I was in my 20s, I was a salesman for a newspaper, sold advertising. And one of my clients was a large car dealer in town. And I put together a presentation specifically for him. And he was a professional salesman, and I was a professional salesman. And for those of you that know me, you'll find the end of this story to be hard to be true. But when I put the whole presentation together and showed it to him, and I said, what do you think, Stan? Do you want to do that? And he started looking at it on his desk. And it was a long, awkward silence after I said, what do you think, Stan? Do you want to do that? I mean, a long silence. I don't know how long, but it felt like minutes. I don't know how long it was, but he was still looking at it. And I looked up over his shoulder, and there was a clock, and I noticed the time. And from the time that it had already felt long to me, when I noticed the clock, until he spoke was 18 minutes. We sat in his office for more than 18 minutes after I asked the closing question with neither of us speaking. Right? And let me show you how long 18 minutes is. Ready? Go. No, we're not going to do that. But felt like an eternity. I had never been in his office 18 minutes when a salesman hadn't come in to pitch a deal to him or something. So, and then after that long 18 minutes, he said, "Sure, let's do it." So there really is wisdom in asking that final closing question and then just waiting for the answer. Okay. And do that when you're asking for critique from a friend, but actually ask them for money in the end. And if they say, "Well, that sounds good, I don't have any money, but, or I don't want to participate, but," then you actually get the critique you wanted anyway. And if they say they want to give you money, you thank them for that and you talk about those details, but you still get the critique. Well, what should I change? How can I make my presentation better? Actually use them for critique, because they're successful, at least in your perception they're successful. So get their critique. The next question I put on here: how do I get opportunities to present? I tell you, get it when you're ready, they appear. But I talk about what I do to anybody that cares to listen. I build homes, I rehab homes. I'm trying to make the community a prettier place, and I do that by rebuilding residential homes one home at a time. Right now, we got 17 going on. And if I think this is a money opportunity that somebody I'm talking to, and I say, and you know what's great about that? As much as I love it, and they show on all those HGTV shows about how we spent $100,000 on this home and we spent $50,000 fixing it up, and we sold it for $200,000, so we made $50,000. Those people are idiots. There was taxes to pay, and there was insurance to pay, and there was interest to pay on that money, and there was a realtor to pay. They didn't make the $50,000 they said on TV, but they did make money. And I like fixing up the homes, but you know what I like way more than that? I got millions of dollars worth of projects going on. And if you don't have millions of dollars, you say it this way: I like fixing up homes. You know what I like more than that? I'm doing my projects with individuals' money and paying them way better returns than they can earn in the bank or any other investment. And it's safe because there's a mortgage and a promissory note and insurance backing it up. It is the best thing about my job is that I'm making other people as much or more money than I'm making myself. And then don't say anything else. And some of those people will say, "Wow, tell me more about that." They'll ask for questions. So if you say that 100 times this week, at least 2 or 3 people will ask you for more information. You just got to be prepared to give that little elevator pitch 100 times. And you'll get people that want to know more. Then you need to be prepared to tell them more. Now, last question here: private lender or not? These are my private lenders. There's David, there's Ed, there's Jim and Nancy, there's Bruce and Etta, there's Ray, there's Merle, and there's Mike. Ray is the one that just committed on the new house that I got. These are my private lenders. This is not a private lender. I got this email. I grabbed this screenshot the other day, and it says in the top corner, you probably can't read it, it says local private lender, but then this is an ad for somebody. They will loan this money to anybody who meets their criteria. Now they're a private lender in that they're not using bank money, they're not using institutional money, so they're kind of a private lender, but they're not a private lender in the true sense of the term, in which private lender, it's all about relationships. This is a private lender. This is an email I got from Ed about a month ago. It says, "Hi, Jerry, touching base. Anything coming up? I still have funds I'm looking to place to invest." Okay. That's a true private lender. When one of the people you've borrowed money from multiple times emails you and says, "Hey, I got some money. Do you need any?" And just in the last 3 weeks, Nancy of the Jim and Nancy couple stopped by my office. She actually has an office in the same building that mine's in, and talked about a few things. And the last thing she said before she left was, "Hey, do you need any more money?" So when you have built a relationship with people and you've built a reputation of using their money, paying them a healthy interest rate and paying it back, people come back to you and want to use your money again. And you'll see in my picture here, those are part of my why. That's my 2 grandgirls, the only grandkids I have, Genevieve and Emmy. And you'll see they're standing behind me in the virtual picture. They're very well behaved. They'll stand there the whole time without saying anything. But now I've given you guys the stuff that is I'm giving as instruction. I'm not going to walk you through how I would ask for private money in the early days. And there are 2 more slides that aren't part of that, and I'll point them out when we get to them. So in making your money work for you, remember, I'm telling them about how to make their money work for them, not how to make the money work for Jerry and 365 Property Partners. I'm talking about how to make you, the private lender. I'm trying to talk about how to make that money work for you. Okay. I start with a slide that tells a little bit about myself, and I'm not going to read all these slides to you, but I am going to read this one and a couple behind it to show you. Jerry Britt, senior partner of 365 Property Partners, has been an executive or a business owner in the Tampa area for more than 25 years. 365 Property Partners and their private lenders combined for more than 25 years of being involved in various aspects of property preservation, renovation, and construction. In that time, their combined business interests have weathered storms and exceeded $250 million in revenues. The team follows unparalleled rehab systems, which allow them to complete every project within a budget and a timeline. They have 21 active projects right now. I'd have to update that if I were sharing it today because the answer is 17 at this moment. Now, I can't see all your hands because I'm only seeing 4 or 5 pictures on the slide, but how many of you have a story like that, have $250 million worth of sales and have 21 active projects right now? You know, not a lot, but that's okay. And it's interesting. You'll see also the statement right before the 21 active projects. The team follows unparalleled rehab systems, which allows them to complete every project within a budget and timeline. That's true. It's not always a budget that I like, and it's not always a timeline that I like, but it always is a timeline, even if it goes beyond the amount of time we plan. So everything here is 100% true. But if you don't have a story like that, here's the next slide, which is not in the presentation that I would show to a potential lender. Jerry started 365 Property Partners in 2014. He and his partner lost money on their first rehab. Everything that could go wrong did, but they fixed it. They sold the house. They paid off their lender in full. They borrowed from him again. They tried to follow the systems better next time. Jerry knows about failure and frustration. Fail forward. So maybe you have a story more like that you can throw in there, that you've had a little experience that you can share something about. And then if you don't, maybe you have this. Jerry, senior partner, 365 Property Partners, is a successful businessman who is a family man first. Jerry has 2 successful grown children, but he hasn't done that alone. Jerry has been married to his high school sweetheart, Susan, for 39 years. He readily acknowledges that his sons are who they are because of their loving mother. Jerry's older son has 2 daughters, Jerry and Susan's grandgirls. Jerry's real expertise is in helping people figure out what they need, then helping them get it. So you can all write a story like this. The purpose of this slide when you're starting to ask for private money is to introduce yourself. Tell that person a little bit about you. If you have nothing to say about your real estate business experience, then tell them you're a decent human being. Just use this slide to talk a little bit about who you are and what you bring to this equation, that you're somebody who can be trusted, you're somebody who knows what they're doing, you're somebody who has invested in your education, in whatever way you want to talk about yourself, but tell them a little bit about yourself so that they get comfortable with who you are. So again, I only show this one when I'm actually talking to somebody, and I can't remember the last time I wore a suit. I actually wore that. I wore that picture was taken at a wedding in 2009. So, and that picture was taken after I crawled out of a tar tank at a business I used to own. But that was taken at Dunkin' Donuts in Riverview, Florida, the only time I've seen my grandgirls in the last year. And I miss them. So I share this one, then it goes straight to this. After I've shared a little bit about myself, let me tell you about our company goals. And I tell them the goals. And this comes right out of the package program that we get. I customize a little bit of me, purchase 2 homes a month, purchase vacant lands for tear down, sell 1 to 2, develop long-term relationships with our lenders. You customize that and make it your own. But this comes from a slide that came right from the template of this package. But I added this on my own. We develop long-term relationships. This is how our company makes money. The reason I say that is because I go right to, how does your bank make money? Well, they charge interest rates, they pay interest rates, they keep the difference. We cut out the middleman. What is a private money loan? And then I tell them about a loan that's secured by real estate, the things that we've all been educated. It's private individuals, and they use the money from retirement funds, from 401k savings. When you loan money against real estate, it provides security, protection, recourse. So again, this slide is word for word from the package that we started. It produces a predictable income stream. Rates don't fluctuate, straightforward terms. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I set up my rates and terms just a little bit farther down the road. This slide is straight from there. I'm not going to read you the slides that you can download from the Mastery site and get yourself. This slide's right from there. I put my own logo, you can see up in the corner of all these. That home is right from this project. I didn't put my own picture in there. I could, but done is better than perfect. That's something I had to work hard to learn because I was in the publishing business for 20 years and we believed in perfect for everything that we printed. And then these are the ways we market. And I share this. And when I'm talking with people, I share a few things about how I find deals, but they really don't care how I find deals. They might have a question or two about how do you find real estate you can make money on, but I share a little bit about this. They're not interested in the great inner workings of how we market and find deals. Then here's a real life example. We bought this house on Empedrada. The purchase price was $300,000. The rehab value was $499,000. This is what the kitchen looked like when we bought it, and this is what the kitchen looked like when we were done. You'll notice it's a little bit bigger and brighter. This is what the hall bathroom looked like when we bought it. This is what the hall bathroom looked like when we were done. This is what the living room looked like when we bought it, and this is what the living room looked like when we were done. And I can tell as I'm presenting to people, again, I don't even show this anymore, but if I were to put this out, I get a feel for how much they're interested and care. I might buzz right through these example pictures, but they may be intrigued by the pictures. I just throw enough pictures in here to show them that we make transformations. And then I stop on this slide. The purchase price on this one was $300,000. The rehab cost was $88,000. So the total loan was $388,000. The private lender on that one, if we'd had that money for 12 months, and just show you a couple of examples, you'd get $44,000 interest, and for 12% interest at 6 months, there's $23,000 worth of interest earned on that project. Here's another real life example. And if you don't have your own examples, you can still share an example and you know, just don't put the words real life example, something if you want, something that you tell them, these are the type of projects that we would do with your money. You know, however you choose to word that. This is on 4402 North Branch. Purchase price is $127,000. The sale price is $245,000. And let me tell you why private money mattered on this one. I'm adding this for you guys. I had that house. That house has an alley behind it. Its backyard neighbor behind the alley, I owned it, rehabbed it, and sold it. And on the day it was scheduled to close, this house came on the market in this condition. Okay, so I just sold the house. I know exactly what this house is worth when it's done. And so I made the offer of $127,000, and I did not get that house. Somebody else offered $140,000. I didn't get that house. And about 3 weeks later, the seller called me back because it fell out of escrow. They didn't close. And they asked me if I was still interested, and I said I am. But at that point, all of my construction crews were tied up, and I wasn't going to get a start on it for 3 or 4 weeks, and I wasn't going to interview a new crew just for the 3-week jump time. I was just going to wait on it. And 3 weeks on the $200,000 roughly I was going to borrow between buying it and fixing it was going to cost me $1,500, $2,000. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'm still interested in it. I'll give you. They wanted, actually I had offered 130 before, and I said, I'll give you 130 and close in 3 weeks, or I'll give you 127 and close on Thursday. And this was on a Tuesday that we were having this conversation, and they had just had a deal fall out of escrow. So they had it under contract at 140. My offer was 130. Their 140 fell apart, and I said, I'll give you 130 in 3 weeks, or I'll give you 127 Tuesday. And they said, we'll take 100, or Thursday. They said, we'll take 127, and we closed 48 hours later. But I knew I had the money available. I knew that what the house was, and I, of course, knew they were in a bind because they thought they had it sold, and it fell apart. So that's why private money mattered, getting that one bought at that price. There's what the kitchen looked like before. There's what the kitchen looked like when it was done. This was a 4-bedroom, 1-bath house. It was originally a 2-1, and they had built onto the back, and now it was a 4-bedroom, 1-bath house. and far more valuable as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So this is what the master bathroom looked like when we bought it. And this is what the master bathroom looked like when we were done. We took one of the bedrooms and turned it into a master bath and a master suite. On this particular one, $127,000 purchase price, $58,000 rehab, extra of $10,000. And so your interest would be $195,000, $23,400. It was 6 months, 11,700. When this house had electricity turned on, we had a tree that needed torn down that wasn't really part of the problem of rehabbing the house. We had a couple extra expenses on this that were outside of the real rehab cost. And when I'm presenting to somebody, I will tell them I pay between 6 and 12% interest. So just ask you if I were saying to you, when I borrow money from somebody on one of these projects, I pay between 6 and 12% interest. What percent would you like to earn? Okay. Anybody have an answer? I assume you would answer 12 if I told you I pay between 6 and 12. What would you like to earn? And of course, everybody says 12. And I say, well, that's great. Let me tell you how that works. If I come to you with a project and here's the purchase price, here's the rehab cost, and here's any extra money I need to do the whole piece of it. If you bring me the whole amount that I need in the time frame that I need it, I pay 12%. I have got them to commit. You want my rate? For you, the best interest rate? Then now, to get to this point, and here's probably the biggest piece of advice. I had somebody ask me this on Facebook recently, and I wrote them a long answer, is that you have to, it's like with the banking, the banks will loan you money when you don't need it. You have to ask for money as though you don't need it, even if you do. You have to have the confidence, because I do have a good deal for you. If you want to loan me money, I know I'm a good investor, or a good rehab, or a good real estate investor. I know I'm going to finish the project. I know I'm going to pay you back. I know you're going to make a good return. I do have a good deal for you. And you, even if you haven't done your first deal yet, and you don't have the same confidence that I have, you have to come off with that air of confidence that I have a good deal for you. And you have to operate as though you don't care whether they give you that $195,000 or not. Because if they don't, somebody else will. But I thought of you first. And that is often the case. Because I have multiple private lenders I work with, I might have $200,000-300,000 available from 2 of them at the same time. And when I get a deal, I go to one of them first. And I tell them that. Say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is the deal. This is the situation. I got other sources if you don't have any money available, but this is what I'm looking for. I want to give you a first opportunity at it. And 9 times out of 10, maybe 19 times out of 20, I've chosen the right one to ask that of first, and they say yes. But you have to ask with confidence, and you have to know, because it is the truth. You have to know beyond the shadow of a doubt you're doing something just as good for them as they are doing for you. And then the last example I run through, here's one, getting to show off my old work truck. This is especially good for successful businessmen. They'll see that and ask me about it. And I go, yeah, I got 315,000 miles on that truck. I could buy a new one tomorrow for $50,000, but it doesn't go any faster or run any better than that one does. So if I had $50,000 I wanted to spend tomorrow, I'd buy a rental property with it instead of buying a new truck. I'm going to keep driving this one until it won't run anymore. This is a house that I bought this lot for $36,000. This is the finished product that we sold for $358,000 on that lot. And we just sold that February 2nd, February 1st of this year. This is what the kitchen looked like during construction. This is what the kitchen looked like when we were all done with it. On this particular one, the purchase price was $36,000. The build cost was $156,000. The extras were $25,000 for a total of $217,000. And the extras here where we had to remove some trees. We had to pay for an architect. We had to pay for surveys. We had multiple things we had to do separate from just building this house. But again, if you are the party who brings me the whole $217,000, then I pay you 12% interest on that. Now, interestingly enough, I've been successful at this every time, and I've always wondered at some point I may not end up being successful on this. But I don't pay monthly interest payments. And that is a huge savings on private money versus hard money. Because as you know, with hard money, you've got to make a monthly interest payment. So you got to have enough or borrow enough. You've got to get gap funding to cover that. My commitment is that I pay all of this in a lump sum when the house sells. And one of my contractors was a flipper himself, and he had about 7 or 8 homes when the markets collapsed back in 7, 8, 9, and had trouble getting them finished, had trouble getting them sold. And he had hard money and he had monthly payments, and he lost a lot of them and essentially ran him out of business. And he now flips one home at a time and then works as a contractor for other people like me. It changed what he was able to do because he went out of business. Now, I have had some dry spots where contractors have failed me. Materials were hard to get, and times where, you know, with the right now today, I have a little over $2 million engaged. I'm soon going to have $3.5 million engaged, but at $2 million engaged at these percentage of interest, that'd be a $20,000 a month payment. So imagine if I had all my projects take an extra 3 months, that's $60,000 out of my pocket to make those payments. Now, when they take longer, it actually cost me that, but I don't have to pay it till I sell the house. I don't have to write checks every month in between. And I've only had one private lender ask me about that, the pain of, well, you know, when you have to write the monthly payment, it makes you more sensitive and working hard to the deadline. I said, trust me, when you got as much going on as I've got going on, you're working hard to the deadline every day. It may not be a check I've got to write, but when I think I was going to make $60,000 on that house and now it's taking longer and I'm going to make $30,000 on that house, trust me, that's painful whether I'm writing a check or not. So I have been successful in negotiating all of these projects at, for example, that 12% interest rate, but no payments till it's done. And one of the things that's probably, well, not probably, this is the sweetest part about it. With all but one of my private lenders, I don't have to borrow the money all at once. They will set it aside for me. Like in this case, I only borrow the money to purchase the lot because it takes 4 or 5 months after you purchase the lot before you got I borrowed the 36 and the 25, the 50, 61,000. 61. Yep. You don't need the money to build the house till you have the plans in place. So I need to tear the trees down, you need to pay the architect, you need to get the permit in place, but you don't need all the other money. So I was only paying interest on the 61,000 during those 6 months. Then I borrowed the new build money in chunks as I needed it, 50,000, and I keep a spreadsheet that says on this date I borrowed this much, this date this much, this date this much, and then let Excel do the math. And here's how much I owe back at the payoff. So that actually saves me. I'm not really paying 12% for the whole length of the project on all the money, only paying 12% on the front money for that. And then this is the slide that I show right from the educational system we got. This is the template slide. Here's how 12% compares to 2% based on these amounts of money, 50,000, 200,000. And if I haven't before shared about that I pay between 6 and 12, this is where I do. And then I say, and this is 2% on the bank CD. Anybody out there getting 2% on a bank CD right now? So this graph's even more dramatic than it looks right here. There's no question if you have convinced them that you are trustworthy with their money and with the project, that you have a greater return for them, more secure than anything else they're doing with their money right now. And then this is the benefits of lending to us, the higher interest rates, title, secured by a deed. In our case, it's a mortgage. Some states, it's a deed of trust. I didn't bother correcting that slide to say mortgage, but Florida is a mortgage state. It's a short-term note. Sometimes we would borrow this money for 3 months. Sometimes it's as long as a year, but your money's not tied up long-term. Our loans start as low as 50,000, and they can increase depending on your comfort level. Here's an example of a $50,000 loan. And then I reiterate that we fill out a promissory note, and I always have a blank and a filled out promissory note, mortgage trust, and insurance policy in my briefcase. So if by chance I stumble onto somebody today and we start talking about this, I don't, and usually that briefcase is not with me. It's usually in the back seat floor of my truck. But if somebody starts asking for more explanation on what these things are, hey, give me a minute, and I go get it, show them. This is what a promissory note is, and this is what a mortgage is. This is how we insure the property. Just show them the different ways that they're protected. throughout doing this deal with us. And then throw this on there, and I'll switch this from time to time. But this is David C. He's an office worker and a wannabe fisherman. You know, he wants to spend all his time fishing, and but he wrote here that he's using his retirement fund. And incidentally, he's an ideal candidate for this. One of my investors is very, very sick, or investors. I'm the investor. One of my lenders is a very, very successful businessman and has more money than I do. They're harder to borrow from because they know a lot and they ask a lot of questions. But people who have 100, 200, 300,000 in their retirement fund, switching that to a self-directed, and you help them grow it faster, those people are easier to borrow from. And I found it much easier to borrow from people who have somewhere between 50 and 500,000 to loan you than people that have over $1 million, to loan you. They're just more likely to believe what you're saying and trust you rather than thinking that they know more than you know. They're not an investor. This is not a security. There's not a return. They're not a shareholder in this house. This is just a loan at the percentage rate that we agree on and put on the promissory note. After I've talked through all of these things with them, then I end up my computer froze, didn't move forward here. That's it. So do you want to see if you qualify to be one of our private lenders? And then I shut up and wait for them to answer. You know? And that is how I raised all this money in the beginning. And today I've raised from 2 new people, and I've gone to multiple times back to the same people without ever using this presentation. But this is the presentation that I've worked through that has got me to where I'm at.